Hey, we're two fat guys.
And we just watched Watchmen, the ultimate cut.
It was an ultimate. I hope it's the ultimate cut. I hope there's not extra cuts after this one.
There probably will be.
That's all of the stuff. All of the stuff's in it.
Everything except for the Under the Hood documentary. It's the only thing Watchmen that's not in it. Well, except for I guess the motion comic.
Yeah.
So they just have like picture-in-picture the motion comic side by side the entire time.
For all scenes. Spoiler alert, this is a really good movie.
Also, spoiler alert, it's a really long movie.
Yeah, I like it.
For the ultimate cut. It is the way to, I think it's the way to watch this movie, but man.
Because honestly, that comic it's a chore. It's a thing. It's a hefty book to read. It's very satisfying. It's very worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long thing, and watching the ultimate cut is a long task.
Yeah, it's very indicative of the comic. It's clocks in about 3.5 hours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which is about how long it takes you to read a book, right? Yeah. So it's solid, but I really enjoy it.
It's
a lot more of the contextual details of the world, and from a filmic sense, maybe it probably technically has pacing issues, which is why there's a theatrical cut. Like, okay, here's as close as we can get this story to still be the story and be a movie. And they're like, fuck it, here's what we filmed and here's what we thought we would do because this is more like the comic.
Though, man, I wish I could know how much money this movie would have made if they would have just come out with a 3.5 hour version.
Mm-hmm.
Like, includes Tales of the Black Freighter, like, and it opens with Under the Hood. Like, beforehand, a 20-minute documentary that you watch.
I don't know about that.
And that's the only release.
I don't know about that.
Like, you get, 5 people seeing that movie, but they would watch it a bunch.
I wouldn't go see that multiple times. Well, I would dollar theater it. Yeah, because I think that's what I did with the Watchmen. I think I saw it in theaters and I dollar theatered it once or twice.
I think I saw it twice in theaters and then dollar theaters.
Oh, you got a reward apparently.
I did.
You won that round. So just because there's so much I like about this film, I'm just going to get to the few things I didn't like, and honestly, most of the things I didn't like just come from a standpoint of I read the comics and here were bits in the comics that I really liked that I kind of wish would have made it in just because you had so much time, you fit so much in, you did such a good job. How dare you not do a perfect job and fit everything? How dare you not just film the comic? One small detail is Rorschach doesn't eat sugar cubes in the movie. Which I don't know why. It doesn't matter. It takes nothing away from the film, admittedly. And I'm saying it now. It would add nothing to the film to have any sugar cubes, except for people like me who go, oh, he eats sugar cubes. It was just a weird character quirk. And I'm like, I don't know why he does that. Is that how he, keeps going? Like, he doesn't do drugs, but he seems like he doesn't sleep ever. Seems like every guy, maybe just sugar cube, just constantly feeding his body pure sugar and just gnawing on them. Because, he did it constantly. He would just...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like little rappers.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So that's one little thing. As far as Rorschach, when Rorschach stops being Walter and becomes Rorschach, the scene where he finds the guy who had killed the little girl and fed her, kidnapped her, fed her to his dogs, and then burned her bones. And when he essentially snaps and is like, "Oh, the world's not worth saving. Evil people need to die."
Mm-hmm.
That moment, the way they hear is sort of very visceral, and it probably worked better on film. He attacks the guy, he kills him, he chaps him with
just a big meat cleaver.
Mm-hmm. Which is a similar scene, he handcuffs and everything, but in the comics then he catches the house on fire and walks out and the guy's screaming arrest me, whatever, and he's just standing there watching it burn on the streets, and then there's he's talking to the psychiatrist, and there's the great dialogue over top, and he's like, I was just watching it burn, Walter Kovacs closed his eyes, and Rorschach opened them, and I'm like, oh, that's the sort of line where I'm damn, I wish I were that smart to think of something that good in the sense of a fiction, and just thinking of the scene, it works way better on film the way they did it, and I don't know if you could have that line have as much impact as it did to me, when it was in my mind reading it to myself. But I really liked it, and I was a little sad that it wasn't in that way. The only other thing is at the very end, I feel Ozymandias gets a slight bigger comeuppance, and it's a little more subtle. So I don't know if maybe they felt it didn't play on film or they didn't have time. The ending attack's a little different in the comics. There's a fake monster he creates instead of making it look like Dr. Manhattan.
Yeah, which I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so we'll get into all that. But it doesn't really change what I'm talking about because essentially a lot of the dialogue's still in there. He's talking to a few different people a few different times, but he's talking to Ozymandias. Essentially at the end, it's just Dr. Manhattan and Ozymandias in his command chamber at this point. And Ozymandias like, oh, I hope I get a chance to talk to you. And he's like, you understand what I did, though, right? And he does I don't, without condemning or condoning, I understand what you did and why you did it. And that dialogue's still there, and then he's like, I'm leaving, and then Ozymandias says the dialogue, I'll probably act next for humanity, does all the I'll make some life and all that. And then, like, before Dr. Manhattan leaves, Ozymandias just sort of, like, in a very human moment, just looks at him and goes, but what I did was right, wasn't it? Just tell me what I did was the right thing to do. And I forget what else he says, but then Dr. Manhattan just won't tell him it's the right thing to do, and he's like, what I did was right, it's finally at an end, like, the war's at an end. Dr. Manhattan goes, nothing's ever at an end. Nothing ends. And then he teleports away, and he's like, what does that mean? And then it's just a shot of him sort of standing there, and, like, the look on his face is just this like total self-doubt. Like, this super genius who's been totally confident through this whole master stroke of his.
He's been planning tons, even more so in the comic.
Yeah, and in this, and Dr. Manhattan just like, I'm not going to tell you what you did was right. Live with what you did. Nothing's ever over. And you just get this great shot, and it's like him and like his long shadow reflecting against the wall. And that's what, like, fucking, that's awful. That sucks to be Ozymandias right now. And I kind of wish they would have worked in that bit of dialogue, because I think the way they arranged it, I think he had to do other things, because by that point in the comic, Rorschach had been dealt with and all that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why they didn't put it in there, but it was such a great...
I found that in both the comic and the movie, the whole sequence of events at the end is
they mix them up a bit.
Awkward, but...
I still wish they would have found some way, because I connected with that so much, and I remember, like, that's why I double-checked the comic just to make sure I wasn't misremembering it. And it's definitely, like, that stuck with me. It was exactly as I remembered it, because he's like, tell me what I did was right. And Dr. Manhattan's like, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to tell you anything about what you did. Deal with it. And it was just a great comeuppance.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. We should talk about, since we're talking about the movie, the kind of one of the biggest changes as far as the comic book and the movie goes. I mean, because for 95% of it, this was super faithful to the comic, to the point where there's like all these like on-set photos, and like you can see like all the crew members have like the rolled up like
just graphic novel
just like with them at all times. Like all these like little notes, sticky bookmarks all over it, which is great. For one, and then, but the biggest thing was they kind of changed the big bad monster villain's plan. Or Ozymandias in the comic had like kidnapped all of these artists and like special effects people and like tons of these creative minds, like biologists and stuff like that. Like that.
This island getaway of scientists they had gone missing. And that's the thing, too. And throughout the comic, there's this running thing of, like, you hear these newspaper stories in the passing in the background about these scientists have gone missing. I think Rorschach mentions it sometimes. And then you, like, see some clips of this island. You're like, well, what are these scientists doing? And then you find out,
even like, the scientists don't really know what they're doing.
Yeah, and they're like, and then you find out, like, late in the book, they work for Ozymandias, and then it goes from there, and you see this weird...
Yeah, he's, like, created this giant... horrifying monster that's supposed to be like this alien being. He's creating this threat of an alien to unite the world.
Essentially, he teleports it into New York. Only New York in the comics.
Yeah.
And it explodes, killing like. Essentially, it's the first season of Heroes. Do you remember that?
No, I mean I remember.
Essentially,
the first season
like
of Heroes.
It's. I'm pretty sure they took the numbers directly from Watchmen. In the comics, he blows up like this large chunk of New York, killing these people. In order to like save the world, and like he was saying it's like a 0.02% of the population. It's like it's such a small chunk of the population to save the rest of it.
Yeah.
And so that's why he feels this. So instead of doing all the CGI, he sends one alien in, like boom, alien invasion, and all nations like, well, fuck, we can't be.
Yeah, like so the alien dies, but they're like, oh, but it now it knows we're here. There's aliens out there. Like they could come back and visit us because oh god, their thing's dead. And yeah, so like unites the world on that front. But what the movie did was they had Ozymandias replicated Dr. Manhattan's power and like his tachyon reading or whatever, and technobabble, and made it seem as though Dr. Manhattan had attacked all of these world cities in a desperate move of fuck humanity.
Yeah, he's like, humanity is a bad child, and I'm punishing you all.
Yeah, and that, I think I almost like it better than the comic. I think it ties, it get like Dr. Manhattan's arc a little more in, to that grand thing, gives him a little more to think about at the end, like, oh, I did this, but you know what, maybe...
Yeah, honestly, I am completely on the fence about this. I've gone, like, depending on where I'm at at the time, I can go like, oh, I like the comic, I like this. I understand why this works so much better on film, and
yeah, so that's why that I think is like undebatable that worked infinitely better for the film.
Regardless of what story I may like better, which I am not even 100% sure myself. Despite the fact that may bring the ire of Alan Moore down on me. He may be listening right now, killing me.
He's one of our 5 subscribers.
Yep. He's like, I will kill them. He was waiting for. He knew we were going to do this. The second we started watching those movies, he hated that we didn't love Swamp Thing either. He's like, how did you not love the Swamp Thing movie? It's perfect. I'm the Unabomber. Direct quote from Alan Moore. For the film, there's no question that I prefer this, just because honestly, the giant monster was like crazy looking. It looked like a weird tentacle vagina monster.
Yeah.
And so in film, it probably would have come across super silly and like really.
That and it took so much explanation in the comics to kind of get you to that point, to where by the end you knew what was going on, you understood.
Yeah. Whereas this,
everything.
I think there were like 2 scenes of him and Dr. Manhattan working together.
Yeah, and that covered it.
Yeah, and that was enough. That was enough. So yeah,
like there's so much else to go into regarding the Watchmen mythos that devoting so much to like this side story of the scientist. Like, in fact, what I prefer and what they did in the Ultimate version is kind of used all that time doing the Black Freighter stuff, like kind of help tying in the metaphor kind of stuff. And
that's another thing they do at the end. They do a call to the Black Freighter in that Ozymandias scene I was talking about. Essentially, when Ozymandias is going on a speech, like, I made myself feel all these deaths. I've watched them, the millions of people that I've killed. He's like, they haunt my dreams. At night, I imagine I'm like, swimming towards and then he stops. He's like, never mind, it's not important. And I'm like, oh, that's a fun little, like, in case you're not up with it, this story's supposed to connect to this one. I'm going to spell it out for you. So there's that fun little moment I forgot about in that scene.
Now that puts this great image in my mind of like the 2 dudes at the newsstand, like, and the kid reading the comic, and then like Ozymandias like covertly like, hey, can I get one of those comics too? And like buying one. Like he's this secret, like he loves these comics, and
he's like, oh god, it's me,
trying to stay incognito.
Spoiler: the story about the heroic ambitions thing you do to horrific things might be about Ozymandias killing people to save people.
I thought it was just an excuse to get Gerard Butler to do things.
Also, yes. But don't tell the subtext, please. They might be after me.
Almost are close to finishing this video, and we did not mention the opening credits.
Because if you don't know the opening credits, fuck you. It's the best opening credits in film to this date.
Yeah.
That I've seen. I can't think of a better opening credit sequence.
I have on my YouTube channel, I've got like a playlist of like opening credit scenes that I think are the best, and
do you have any closing credits?
No, because it's just.
I'm gonna do you a favor. If you've never seen the movie, watch the closing credits to a series of unfortunate events.
Yeah.
They are my favorite closing credits of all time. Like if it weren't for the fact that they have no connection at all to the Watchmen, like, man, it'd be a perfect movie if it started with the Watchmen credits and ended with those. I don't even care what's in the middle. Just make up something. Galaxy Quest is in the middle.
Alright, yeah. So Galaxy. We open with the Watchmen opening credits, then we watch all Galaxy Quest, and then it closes with Lemony. Just make a series of unfortunate events.
And then like Captain America title card rolls up.
Yep. Perfect movie.
The opening credits great, from the opening shot of stopping Batman from being created, saving.
Sort of. It's not really Batman. I mean, it's Batman comic.
Okay, saving the rich couple and their son coming out of the opera house in Gotham City, with the Batman like written on the Batman comics printed to the wall. Okay,
that could be anyone.
That could be anyone. It's the Creeper. It's Jack Ryder.
Yep. Everything about that opening credits is
the best thing.
Amazing.
In addition to being, first off, just fantastically beautiful. They're just gorgeous to watch. They serve a very important function.
Absolutely, yeah. They set up their entire history.
They're a vital function. Like, if you watch this, like, okay, here's the world we're in. They take you in chronological order through this world.
I would say it's as important as the Game of Thrones opening.
I'd say it's more important.
Possibly.
Because honestly, I know all the story of Game of Thrones, and I didn't catch on all the things because in addition to doing like the different cities and stuff, they also tell you the history of the world on the bands that go around.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I didn't catch that going in, having not read the books. I didn't catch all of that stuff. Yeah. But man, holy shit, did that map help me? When
the map definitely helps you. Yeah, because when you're reading the book, I think
you get them on either.
I'm constantly flipping the front. Like, okay, what was that? Okay, here's where we're at. Okay.
Oh, River Run. Well, where's that? Oh, it's right next. Well, that makes sense. Why that would be a big problem. Yeah.
These opening, it's so gratifying when they both make good art and functional art.
Yeah, and it's because it serves the purpose of telling the past and the history and kind of setting that up, but it also sets the tone in a big way. Because it plays through the times they are changing, and it starts off with these super heroic, like the heroes doing heroic things as it just kind of slowly devolves, and then we kind of get the evolution of the newer heroes and like their moment of glory for a bit, and then.
I could write
back down.
I could write all sorts of papers on this.
I wouldn't. I mean, I could. I wouldn't.
I believe I mentioned these in for my history of animation class. I read a paper on visual effects in non like animated films, and I believe I mentioned these as like a really good use of because I was mentioning sort of the breadth of it, and I like used like the extremes of like Transformers, where like okay, you're pretty much like you're filming scenery and then throwing in robots over top it. Versus this, where it's all this very like elaborately filmed stuff with like floating words over it and like the effects of like the color changes and things. So, and I mean, you could there's so many things you can pick apart. I don't even know, like, I've not fully sat down and analyzed it. I don't even know what to make of the slowly increasing speed of the scenes, which I don't even know if you're meant to. Like, I don't even know, at the very least, it's just meant to, like, so this is the snapshots, this is the freezes of the past, and the closer you get to the future, the closer you get to moving at a normal speed. Just because that's sort of bringing into, like, okay, here's the times we're at. And just,
I had not even noticed that.
Yeah, if you watch, like, the Batman scene, just watch each successive scene, the slow motion is slightly faster. So, like, where in the Batman scene,
because I know it starts
barely moving.
Yeah, I know it starts off super slow.
They're barely moving, and then when you get to like some of the later scenes, like it's barely in slow motion. Yeah, like I mean, but like just think between the very first one and then like the one where the hippie one puts the flower in the gun and they fire.
Yeah.
Just think about the relative slow motion between these two.
Oh yeah, I mean
that's still in slow motion, but not nearly to the extent that the other one is. And if you watch, just as you get closer to the present, it's closer to regular speed. Like the JFK one's pretty close to regular speed. And I don't know what he was trying to convey, and that's one of the things about talking about film, and I was angry is when anyone asserts this is what the filmmaker was trying to do. You don't fucking know. Just if you can make an argument, it makes sense with what's happening on screen, then you can enjoy the argument. So
yeah, I mean, because for all we know, it was, we wanted it to all be super slow-mo, and that doesn't work right, and but then towards the end, like, that looks better and fast. We should make it a smooth transition, I guess, so it doesn't look jarring. And, alright, that works. Yeah. All day, everyone.
But you can read a lot into these things. And just the opening, we don't have enough video to talk about the opening credits. That's why we avoided that.
True.
If you don't watch anything if you watch one thing from any of these marathons that we do, watch the opening credits to Watchmen, and good enough. I also recommend watching everything else we watched, because everyone else should suffer. I'm looking at you, Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Speaking of suffering,
next
up, we've got Superman 4 Quest for Peace.
Woo!
Everyone's favorite Superman film.
Which I think is the perfect palate cleanser after Watchmen. Get that awful taste of Watchmen out of our mouths with a nice, campy...
And it should be the lowest rated one we've gotten moving forward.
Yeah, decidedly. Decidedly the lowest rated one going forward.
So we'll get on that, and we'll be back then.
Shabadoo.